For the last couple of days, I've been marathoning this series of videos and podcasts called Shallow Rewards by Chris Ott, which sort of goes through different like moments in musical history or just talks about albums or artists in a really interesting way. And he has this one podcast about the album MBV by My Bloody Valentine. And he was talking about how what's so interesting about this album's release is that it was not made widely available on streaming services and stuff. It's not that easy to like come by. You have to either buy the album, which is quite expensive. They sell it for like $30 for the CD or like $40 for the vinyl. Which is why I never ended up actually buying it myself, even though I love the album. But they had it on YouTube as well, and that's like the easiest way to come by it, is that it was up on YouTube, although I think they removed it eventually, even though it was like the band themselves had uploaded it. But it was not released through normal channels, and so the album's kind of hard to come by, and as a result, no one talked about it. And he was saying how, like, even though it's a new album by one of the biggest fucking bands in music, in music criticism, their album Loveless is like widely considered one of the greatest albums of all time. They have this comeback record and people really liked it. It was very popular, but it doesn't get talked about much in like social circles. And he was saying how he thinks that the reason for that is that so much of what drives the music community is this sense of like everyone's listening to the same thing at the same time, and they're all talking about it and discussing it, and then they move on to the next thing, and it keeps going from there. And only the stuff that continues to be accessible and continues to be sort of in the view of the mainstream is the stuff that really gets talked about. And all of this fascinated me because A, I fucking love that album MBV, and B, I've never seen it talked about. I see Loveless talked about constantly to this day. Barely ever see MBV. And it got me thinking about anime and how this is totally what's going on with like what anime get talked about. That every season a shitload of new shows come out, and people talk about them while they're new. The shows, like, right now especially, it's gotten weirdly prevalent that people like really talk about current anime. And I mean, current anime has always been a big subject of discussion, but back when I was an anime blogger, like, there was a lot of people who didn't talk about current anime at all, and it was rare for someone to not be also talking about other shows. Even if you were following all the current shit and episodically blogging new shows, most people were going back and checking out backlog stuff, because the backlog stuff was considered more important and like more highly revered than anything current. So it's funny to me that there's so many people who are like writing really analytical stuff now. Like, you follow like a Sakuga blog or something, and it's like they're talking about all the great animation happening in each new episode of a show, but why not old shows? Or, like Pause and Select, applying this very academic, like, research kind of stuff to mostly new shows. And it's kind of odd, but I totally get why it's happening, because everyone's talking about new shows, because new shows are so fucking accessible now that, like, a show comes out, and that hour, that it comes out in Japan, it's on Crunchyroll, everybody's watching it, and there's this sense of like, if you go on Twitter and you tweet about the episode as it's airing, or like within 20 minutes of it popping up on Crunchyroll, everyone else is watching it too, and that's why there's able to be such like a hype conversation around like Yuri on Ice right now, where like everyone discusses it each week when a new episode comes out. But it also got me interested in thinking like, well, okay, what anime is suffering from this? Is there a show that the only reason it's not getting talked about is because it's not accessible? And the answer is Precure. And there's this really interesting way that people talk about Precure, because Precure's very like niche. Not a lot of people are watching it because it's not on any fucking streaming sites. The only way you can watch Precure is actual fan subs, which aren't always necessarily like the day of. And yet everyone who is talking about Precure seems to be like desperate to get more attention to Precure. Like people who like Precure really like it, and they talk about it a lot, and they share it all the time, and it just seems like it's impossible to break the barrier out to the mainstream and like get people to care about Precure. Like even though the people who love it, like someone like you Cow, or Thaliarchus on Twitter, or SD Shamshell, the guy who writes Ogiwe Maniacs, like these are all people who have like a fairly decent following, and they'll post about fucking Precure all the time. Every new episode that comes out, there's a bunch of screenshots showing how adorable the characters are, all these cool fights, all this cool stuff about Precure, and yet they can't get anybody to watch it because it's just not accessible. There's not a streaming service putting it out. And then there's the problem of every season is 50 episodes long, and there's like 12 seasons now. And, every time one of the movies comes out that features every Precure ever in it, then it's like, for someone seeing that on the outside who's never seen any of it, it's like there's 35 of the fucking characters who are, you always see these giant pictures with every Precure heroine in it. So I think part of the problem is the difficulty of breaching someone like me. Precure is a series that is a magical girl show intended for little girls that airs, Sunday mornings. It airs alongside the likes of fucking Super Sentai, which is, what Power Rangers essentially is. Kamen Rider and like that stuff. It's like a morning cartoon action show that's aimed at little girls, but it has way more action than like what was typically considered a little girl show or even a magical girl show. It's a fighting show. These girls like kick ass and fight monsters. And as a result, a lot of guys got into it, and it became sort of a staple in the otaku community as well. And I don't think anybody cared about Precure in the English-speaking world, really, until Heartcatch Precure, which was the one with the fucking awesome Yoshihiko Umakoshi designs that, like, had all these really intense fight scenes, and it kind of looks like Kashurn, and it's like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And I remember the first time I discovered it was just, like, I was on Gelboru, and some GIFs start popping up of these, like, really cool fight scenes where these cute girls are beating the shit out of monsters with like super Sakuga animation, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I need to see this. And I think a lot of people reacted that way, and Heartcatch Precure was subbed, it was fan subbed, and people found it, and like people who liked it got so into Precure that eventually all of it got subbed. Like, I mean, there was already, I think Heartcatch is like the 6th or 7th season of it, so there was a lot out there. Some of it had been subbed, some hadn't, and eventually it all got there because, the people who found it discovered, holy shit, this has always been good. Heartcatch was not the first good Precure. The first Precure was the first good Precure. And not all the seasons are equally good, but like it's consistent that people who get into Precure will watch all of them, and they will at some, on some level like all of them. I don't think there's any Precure that's like hated. There's ones that aren't as celebrated, and there's ones that are very celebrated. I think Heartcatch is like the most universally beloved. But I mean, Precure right now is in what, if I'm to trust people talking about it, is one of its best series. It's currently doing Mahotsukai Precure, which was basically the Little Witch Academia TV show that we didn't know we were going to get until now they're actually going to make one next season. But like, this is a show that people are super fucking into, and for good reason. It's really good. It's just that it's so long. I mean, I watched half of Heartcatch Precure, and I already considered it like, this could be one of my favorite shows. I love this show. I love the designs. I love the characters. I love everything about it. But it's just so long. It's so hard to watch 50 episodes of something that no one's talking about. That there is no conversation surrounding. That you're watching just because it's a fun show. There's nothing to like analyze necessarily about it other than, like the basic stuff that it's great. And there's so much that, like, if one of my personal goals has been ever since I fucking started the anime channel, like, one of the first ideas I had was watch all of Precure, write something about Precure. But watch all of Precure means watching, like, nearly 1,000 episodes of 10 seasons of Precure. So I get it. It's hard to, like, tell someone, hey, please start watching this show. It's only 10 seasons of 50 episodes apiece. You'll be fine. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But what bothers me, though, is that, like, there's so many people who would love Precure, and the only reason not to watch it is because you're watching too much current anime. You know, the only reason not to watch 500 episodes is because you want to watch the current stuff so you can be a part of the conversation that's ongoing and all that, which, I mean, Precure is a current anime. It's just not a widely discussed and distributed one because, again, it's not on streaming sites. So the only people talking about it are these people on Twitter. But, I mean, those guys are so excited about it, and they're posting stuff constantly. And, like, I literally feel bad about the fact that I'm not watching Precure. And I've felt that way for years now. Every year, a new one starts, and I usually, like last year, I got around to the first episode of Go Princess Precure, which was not one of the most popular, but it had this amazing Sakuga scene in the first episode. They got talked a lot. Sakuga people talked about it a lot and, like, really tried to champion it, but it just didn't seem like anyone outside of that community cared. And that's a shame, and I feel bad that I didn't keep up with Precure because I was watching everything else, you know? So I kind of like almost am making this video to make amends for not not talking about Precure more, because it totally deserves it. It's a great show. Every season's been great. And I think another part of it is that it's kind of being, like, unfairly maligned, because the thing about any show really is that, like, you know, no show is for everybody. Every show is going to have its audience. But the thing about Precure is that it deserves more. Like, there's obviously a lot of people out there who would like it who aren't getting it. I think that's the case. And when you have a show like, let's say, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a show that a lot of people love and a lot of people totally don't get. But at least Eva has had the opportunity to reach everybody. Like, even if half the people who watch it hate it, if the other half is 100,000 people, and, you know, most shows don't even have 100,000 people who watch it at all, then it's like, yeah, Eva has been seen by a lot of people who wouldn't like it, but it's also made its way to anyone who would care about it. Precure has not had that opportunity because there's too many people who won't be into it, who, you know, are scared to, like, check this thing out. I think there's not enough people just, like, flat out saying Precure's fucking great, go look at it, aside from these people on Twitter. And there's too many people, like, critiquing it for other reasons, like, and maybe not unfairly, where some people will talk about it in terms of, like, magical girl shows or in terms of feminism and stuff like that, and they'll say, well, you know, it's not as good as Sailor Moon or something, or it's not the same kind of thing. There's been a lot of criticism of whether or not the show is good for girls, you know, like whether or not it portrays women in a good way, because some would argue that it promotes lots of traditional values in that the girls are, like, usually fighting with, like, you know, they'll open up, like, a compact mirror or something, and that's how they transform. Or there's a lot of, like, feminine imagery, like, traditional feminine imagery in, like, what they do. And some people see that as, like, reinforcing stereotypes and gender norms. And some people see it as making those things cool, that affirming that you can be those things and still be a cool, well-rounded, good character. And there's a lot of argument over which one of those is, like, the feminist angle. Should feminism be about, like, embracing stereotypes or whatever, and saying, like, yeah, you can be that, but it doesn't have to define you, and it doesn't have to be all that you are. You can be that and also be great. Or should it be about saying you don't have to be that at all, you can be totally different? And that's a worthwhile conversation to have, and I think it's great that there is a conversation like that about Precure. But I feel like the unfortunate result of that is people looking at Precure and not watching it because there's an argument about the feminist angle of it. Like, notwithstanding that it's just a good show. Like, if you're not concerned about the social angle at all, or if you're just looking for a fun, cool action show where cute girls beat up big monsters and there's great animation and great character designs and just, lots of memorable characters. Heartcatch Precure, like, fuck all the analysis. The reason that show is great is that Kurumi Erika is a fucking great character. She is super fun to watch. She is just utterly lovable. And, like, that's what carries that show, And the great fashion sense of it, the character designs are just fantastic. They always have, like, adorable outfits, and the colors are popping all over the place, all over the screen, It's a fun show to watch. I'm not saying it's like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Some people might say that, and I haven't finished it. Maybe I would say that by the end. But, like, I feel like Precure's getting an unfair shake because the conversation surrounding it is, like, almost too deep. And it's cool that that deep of conversation is happening, but I wish that was happening after it had reached everybody, as opposed to, like, I feel like people, are Googling Precure and getting stuff that's, like, way out of their depth and being like, well, I don't even want to involve myself in this, whereas a show like a Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress can come out and it's just like everyone immediately knows this is a cool, fun show that I'm going to watch because it's cool and fun, regardless of if you hated the ending, which most people did. But, like, when it came out, we all got it, and everyone got to see it, and everyone got to participate, and Precure isn't having that. It's like you have to work to get into it. You have to figure out where to find it, who's talking about it, who you can talk about it with, like what season you're supposed to start on and stuff, which incidentally, just start with Heartcatch. Everybody loves it. Or start with whatever the current one is. I mean, right now it's Go Princess Precure. It's probably nearing its end. They usually start in, like, late January, early February. So there's probably, like, 40-something episodes of, wait, did I say Go Princess? I meant Mahotsukai. It's currently Mahotsukai Precure. So, watch that one, and everything I've seen from it looks amazing. Everyone posts, like, those guys who are into it, they post those fucking GIFs all the time, and they look great. So, yeah, I guess that's the message I'm sending with this video. I don't have enough time yet to watch all of Precure and make a video analysis of it, but I will one day. I will one day go on a huge screed promoting Precure, but for now, just use this video as your push to get started with it if you have any interest at all.